Hi friends, in today's video, we are going to discuss the poem The Wild Swans at Coole, written by Irish poet W.B. Yeats. It is included in the 4th unit, Woodland Whispers of 10th Standard SCRT textbook. As you know, there are some famous poems in English literature which are influenced and inspired by nature. For instance, we have Wordsworth's I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, Shelley's Ode to a Skylark, Keats' Ode in Autumn. In all these poems, nature has played a significant impact. The serenity of nature often evokes tender feelings in us. A visit to the Coole Park in Ireland inspired W.B. Yeats to write the poem The Wild Swans at Coole, which is a deep meditation on the transience of human life and the permanence of the beauty of nature. In other words, watching a group of beautiful swans in the Coole Park makes the poet think human life on earth is brief, while the beauty of nature is eternal and everlasting. Before we proceed to the poem, let us discuss the poet, which will help you understand the poem better. William Butler Yeats, or W.B. Yeats, was an Irish poet, a dramatist, a writer, a literary critic, and a prominent political figure in the history of Ireland. He is one of the most important writers in the 20th century. He won Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1923. He is one of the leading figures in the Irish literary revival that led to the growth of wonderful literary works from Ireland that also influenced the national movement in Ireland. His major works include poems like The Lake Isle of Innisfree, Easter 1916, The Second Coming, Leda and the Swan, Sailing to Byzantium, and plays like The Countess Cathleen, The Land of the Heart's Desire, The King's Threshold, among others. Major themes in his works are Irish nationalism, its folklore, history and mythology, spirituality and mysticism, time, aging and mortality, art versus life, the ideal versus reality, and of course, love. Coming to the poem, The Wild Swans at Coole was first published in 1917 in the literary magazine titled Little Review. Later, it became the title poem in his 1917 and 1919 collections of poetry. The Wild Swans at Coole is the title of his poetry collections published in 1917 and 1919. These collections were dedicated to Robert Gregory, a British airman who was killed in the First World War. His mother, Lady Gregory, was a prominent figure in Irish literary revival and a great friend of W.B. Yeats. Yeats stayed at her house in the Coole Park and assembled his collection dedicated to her dead son. He was full of melancholy and he was unhappy thinking of his advancing age, romantic rejections, and Irish rebellion against British. The poem is a search for lasting beauty in this changing world. We can say that the theme of the poem appears to be the grief and disappointment of a person who has grown old. The poem is divided into 5 stanzas and the rhyme scheme of the poem is A, B, C, B, D, D. All the 5 stanzas follow this rhyme scheme. Okay, now let's have a look at the poem in detail. Here is the first stanza. The trees are in their autumn beauty. The woodland paths are dry. Under the October twilight, the water mirrors a still sky. Upon the brimming water, among the stones, are 59 swans. So you can see that the poet is very specific about the setting. the place and the time. The place is a woodland path which is dry. And what time of the year is it? It is the autumn season in the month of October. And what about the time of the day? Since he talks about the twilight in October, it is definitely evening time. So, autumn season, a dry woodland path, and twilight. All this denote one thing: old age, or the death and decay that awaits us. So, as we all know, during the autumn season, the trees shed their leaves. So, autumn is a month that precedes the winter. So, the nature is awaiting the winter, the death and decay that winter brings in. In a similar manner, during our old age, we are literally awaiting our death. See how the poet also mentions the still sky. He might be referring to the stillness, the quietness, the indolence or idleness that engraves during our old age. And what is the scene that caught the attention of the speaker or the poet? Yes, the sight of 950 swans, which means 59 swans in the brimming waters in the Coole Park. So, the first stanza of the poem describes the setting of the poem and introduces us to that particular scene which caught the attention of the poet and made him deeply think about how fleeting or temporary human life and achievements are. Moving on to the second stanza. The 19th autumn has come upon me. Since I first made my count, I saw, before I had well finished, all suddenly mount and scatter, wheeling in grey broken rings upon their clamorous wings. So, is it the first time that the poet is seeing the swans? No. 19 years ago, in the same place, he had seen a similar sight. So, 19 autumns have gone by. When he comes back and beholds the scene once again, the swans still have their youthful vigor, their youthful energy. He thinks about how, even before he could complete counting them, they just mounted away, they just climbed and scattered away in broken rings upon their clamorous wings. Clamorous, the sound of the wings as they fly away. Notice how the swans are full of sound and movement, both which are intimations of their youthful energy. They mount or they climb, they scatter away with their clamorous wings. Now have a look at the third stanza. I have looked upon those brilliant creatures, and now my heart is sore. All has changed since I, hearing at twilight, the first time on this shore, the bell beat of their wings above my head, trod with lighter tread. Even though the poet is deeply appreciative of the elegance and the beauty of swans, the sight of the swans make his heart go sore, or it causes him heartache. Why? Because it makes him think about how life has changed in 19 years. We can imagine how he has grown old. The relationships in his life might have changed. People might have left him. So the sight of the birds make the poet melancholic or sad. It makes him think about his lost glory. Life was so much lighter back then. See how the birds used to trot with a lighter tread, the movement of the birds. So life was so much lighter back then. But now the things have changed. He contemplates on his lost vigor, the pomp and show of his youthful days. Now everything has changed. Now have a look at the fourth stanza. Unwearied still, lover by lover, they paddle in the cold, companionable streams or climb the air. Their hearts have not grown old. Passion or conquest wander where they will, attend upon them still. See, this stanza reveals that the swans are still young. They are still full of passion. So, the fourth stanza creates a clear contrast with the previous stanza. The swans are still unwearied. They are still tireless, unlike the author who is growing bitter because of his old age. He observes with a pinch of jealousy that their hearts have not grown old. They still have their passion and desire for exploration or conquest. Now, in the fifth stanza, but now they drift on the still water, mysterious, beautiful. Among what rushes will they build? By what lake's edge or pool delight men's eyes when I awake some day to find they have flown away? See, the poet is being fully aware of the quietness and the stillness of old age. He wonders who will rejoice and who will be fortunate enough to behold this beautiful sight of the swans one day when he wakes up. This can be interpreted as an allusion to death or even afterlife. So once he is dead, the people who are still alive will be fortunate enough to see the swans. The swans are going to delight them. Or it could also mean that the poet who is in old age can no longer find happiness in the sight of the swans. But people who are still young can definitely take a look at the swans and draw artistic inspiration from them, just as how the poet found artistic inspiration from them in his youthful days. Poet envisages a life without passion, youth and romance for himself. The inspiration will delight eyes and minds of others, but not him as he is growing old. Now, if you take a look at the poetic devices used in the poem, we can see that the use of symbolism in the poem is quite prominent. See, the swans in the poem, they are actually symbols of youth, passion, eternal beauty, and permanence of nature. And of course, the artistic inspiration that the poet draws from nature. The swans in his poem are not simple birds. They actually stand for something greater. They symbolize, they denote the youthful energy which he misses, which he thinks about with nostalgia in his old age. Similarly, you can say that autumn symbolizes the old age. And you can see that the poem ends with a rhetorical question. By what lake's edge or pool delight men's eyes when I awake someday to find they have flown away? So the poet wonders who are the people who are going to find artistic inspiration or who are going to be delighted on this particular site when I have finally left this place or when I have finally died. Also notice the use of alliteration, the repetition of consonant sounds in adjacent words, like in the line, the bell beat of their wings above my head. Look at the repetition of a boo sound. Then trod with a lighter tread, t, the consonant sound is being repeated there. Another very important poetic device is the use of imageries. How the poet is creating word pictures in the poem. See, in the first stanza, there are numerous visual imageries. We can imagine the dry woodland paths, the still sky, and of course the 59 swans in the brimming waters. So similarly, the poem has got numerous visual imageries and the use of auditory imagery. He talks about the clamorous wings of the birds. So all these imageries help us visualize that particular beautiful sight in nature. It makes us think about the look of swans and the sounds they make. So it makes us connect with the poem better. Talking about the tone of the poem. So from our discussion, it is evident that the poem has a tragic, regretful, melancholic tone, but it is still threaded with hints of reverence, respect for nature and the beauty of swans. See, in the last stanza, the poet refers to the birds as mysterious and beautiful. So how can we summarize this discussion? Okay, so The Wild Swans of Coole is the title of his poetry collection published in 1917 and 1919. So the poem is the title poem in this collections, and it was dedicated to Robert Gurgari, who died in First World War. The poem is a deep contemplation on the fleeting nature of human life and the permanence of the beauty of nature and artistic inspiration that a true artist draws from nature. The beautiful sight of a group of swans in the Coole Park makes the poet think about their youthful vigor. He thinks about how they are full of youthful energy and they are still active, with full of passion and the desire for exploration, while he himself is in his old age and he's experiencing the bitterness of old age, the stillness, the quietness, and the indolence that engraves a person during their old age. And not to forget that the poem is a lyric, it is a musical poem. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I hope this will help you with your preparations for your examination. Please stay tuned for more videos. Please do take care. Thank you.